Hello everyone, I am VAOS and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. Today I will be building SSTOs, but a little differently. Just a little. A few videos ago we were talking about building SSTOs for every tier level of technology. If you're playing science or career mode, well, science or what? That other career mode where you have to do missions and money, compared to science where you don't have to do all that. But anyway, so trying to build SSTOs for every tier of technology in the tech tree. Well, I only have enough time to go through 1 through 6. You can find these tier levels on the sidebar when you're at Spaceplane Hangar or VAB. And have a little icon right there where you can click on it and it'll give you the different tech levels. So we're going to start with 1 and then work our way up. Now I tried really hard to make an SSTO in tier 1, but let's face it, there just isn't enough power. The way I built the rocket was basically a single line, and then I just offset all the pieces so that all the rockets could go off at the same time, giving me enough TWR to get off the ground. It's a slow burn, but I figured with all the rockets burning slowly, it would last the longest. Now I have thought about using maybe steps in order to try to have the burn time extended. I mean, that's an idea. Like have the bottom row full power, or not full power because that would last for about 10 seconds, if that. And then like the middle row burn a little slower, the top row burn even slower. That could extend it, but I really don't see it happening. There came a point where I couldn't add any more of the little Flea solid boosters because of the fact that it wasn't changing the delta V at all. And it's funny because when I took off a whole bunch of them, the delta V went down, say maybe 10 or 15 delta V. And so adding more at a certain point does not give you more. In fact, at a certain point, it'd probably just start hurting you. The delta V would probably start going backwards. It ended up looking like a flying Egyptian pyramid, which was amusing. Uncontrollable, but still amusing. I tried adding more command pods in order to get more reaction wheel power, but like I said, at this point, the damn thing was just futile. I cut down on the rockets a little bit, tried it that way, and I actually got better speed and altitude, but it was, like I said before, it was all going to the same conclusion that it just wasn't gonna work. So SSTOs in tier 1, if you can make it work, then you're freaking legend, because I don't see it working. So that's it for tier 1. Tier 2, we have a little bit more to play with, such as liquid rockets. Interestingly enough, I've built this design before, and I was having troubles re-entering because I made it so slick that there was really no way to slow down. So the Kerbal ended up dying all the time. However, all I did was add 2 of those modular girder segments. The idea was that maybe if I could create some drag in the back during re-entry, it'd help me slow down a little bit more. Plus, if it ever went ass heavy and flipped around, the girder segments could possibly help with the heating problem, like a little miniature makeshift heat shield. Interestingly enough, though, it did something completely useful and completely different and completely that I didn't expect. Completely. Somehow the body lift would take over, but because the girders on the bottom created drag, it would keep the tail down and the nose up the entire time, even without SAS on, so I could save battery power. And it slowed it down fairly quickly. I was like, holy crap, this is working. It's working. It's working. How's it working? A nice little discovery. So if you're in career mode and you're at tier 2 tech level, well, there you go. An SSTO. Or actually an SSRT. SSRT was something that was made way before SSTO was even a thing. Single stage rocket technology. Look it up, it's pretty cool. I like the history behind it. But anyway, of course I don't have time to make a perfect landing, so I just boom. Now here we are at tier 3. In tier 3 we have our wonderful wingy bits. They have 0 control whatsoever, but they're still wingy bits, and we can use them. Little wingy bits of wings. Still can't fly it like a plane yet, so we're gonna have to launch it like a rocket. And we can't even land it like a plane, but we can sort of land it in the water. This one has a little bit of an upgrade because it can carry 3 Kerbals up, so it's kind of like a passenger craft. Although it can't dock with anything, well, it can get near something. That's another thing too. When I was going through the 1 through 6 tier levels, I was just building an SSTO to get up there. Maybe carry some passengers, but just to get up there. If I was to try to actually make useful SSTOs, such as cargo carrying SSTOs for each tier level, I could probably do it. Like I could see maybe putting a satellite on the back of this thing, or a really, really small space station consisting of a bunch of command pods stuck together, like a super early space station. Now, learning from the whole girder segment slowing you down, whatever, from before, I put on girder segments in this craft, but they were hidden inside the little service base until they were needed. I tried doing it without the girder segments, and unfortunately I didn't slow down fast enough for the parachute to be able to engage. You have to remember there's no control with this son of a gun, because I don't have elevons or any of that crap yet, so the only control I'm getting is the reaction wheels that are inside the command pods. One of the reasons why I put 3 of them on there. So when I added the whole girder segment thing that was hidden inside the service bay, yeah, that helped out a lot when it came to slowing down. Now if I had time, I'd try to make a nice smooth landing, but for now, just landing is fine enough. I can imagine if I really tried, I'd be able to put it down in one piece, or even maybe at the KSC, which would be pretty cool. Now for tier 4, I unlocked the Juno engines, the little itty bitty engines that you get, very first jet engines that you get in the game when you're playing at career mode. So I wanted to build an SSTO that incorporated the Juno engines. Now mind you, I could have just easily have made another SSRT. It would have been simpler, maybe a little larger, but it would have been simpler. In tier 4, you unlock the little passenger modules, so I wanted to make sure I wanted to use some of those. Some science modules. Inside the service module, I'd put a bunch of batteries in there and some of the little reaction wheels, as well as your first Sputnik looking probe core. I would use this for a type of re-entry probe core to keep my nose tilted up during the entire descent. If you're wondering all about the techniques and stuff, I made a how to build SSTO video a couple of videos ago. You can check that out. Remember that it's only for extremely simple basic techniques, nothing advanced or even moderate. It's just get your feet wet. But if you're having problems building SSTOs, it might help you out a little bit. Maybe later on I'll make a more advanced SSTO thingamajig. Some of the techniques that you see me use in this video, you can be like, why did you do that? I can make a video saying this is why I did it. So anyway, tier 4, Juno engines. There's a couple of things I had to put together and test out first just to make sure that that wasn't going to work. I wanted to use the Terrier liquid fuel engines, but I actually got better numbers overall just by using the swivel engines. So while yes, the Terrier engines would have helped a little bit, the Delta V difference was marginal. Because you gotta remember, the Delta V that's read out in your space plane hangar, or in this case the mod that I'm using, Kerbal Engineer, it's if you're already in orbit and then you use the Terrier engine. You have to remember that these Juno engines aren't going to get us that far. So you need a rocket to be able to get you the rest of the way. It's got to be strong enough to pick up your entire craft and move it through the atmosphere. Terrier engines are great for space interplanetary travel at that tech level. But if you're talking about an SSTO, especially if you want to keep it, non-gigantica, if you want to try to have the SSTO small, adding a Terrier engine might help a little, but only once you're almost in space and the atmosphere is non-existent. And even then, your TWR is so low, you're still gonna need some help from other rockets. So instead of building an SSTO that has 3 different frickin' engines on it, each meant for different levels of atmospheric flight or space flight, I decided to go for the easier, smaller, simpler approach. Just 2 engines, jet engine and a rocket engine. Boom, you're done. You're done. You're done. You don't need 50 frickin' engines.
But the Terrier engine is so cool. It's so cool. The ISP is so high. It's safe fuel. It's so cool. You should have used it. Why didn't you use it?
Hey. Shh. It's gonna be okay. Basically, the flight path of the Tier 4 SSTO was to try to get as much speed as possible before pulling up around 10 degrees, and then trying to maintain that speed, even though the speed was slowly slowing down, try to maintain it as long as possible while still climbing. The idea here is to get past the super thick atmosphere, which I think goes all the way up to 8,000 meters. And then once you get up to the crest of that super thick atmosphere, to point the nose up and then activate the rockets. This saves a lot of Delta V because the rockets don't have to waste a bunch of fuel trying to push through the thick atmosphere. The Juno engines have already done all that for it, which in turn makes a really good SSTO. You've already cut through the worst part of the atmosphere with air-breathing engines, so the rockets don't have a whole lot that they need to cut through. Cargo variants of this kind of thing would be like the Tier 3 SSTO. I could possibly put something on the back of this thing, maybe have it have a Terrier on it. Kind of like one of the SSTOs, well, not SSTO, more like two-stage craft that I built for Solar Nations back in the day. If you don't know what Solar Nations is, it's a series that I made a long time ago. I think I got 43 videos out before I stopped, and then handed it over to a group that was really into it. So I figured, hey, if they're really into it, I'll just go ahead and give them the series. But anyway, the idea was to have a space plane that could get up halfway, and then there was a little plane on the back of it that could detach and then go all the way into orbit with the Terrier on it. So if you're thinking about putting something into space cargo-wise and using this like a cargo SSTO, you could possibly do that during the rocket phase. Have the Terrier activate along with the rockets, and then once it gets into space, it can detach. And there you go, you got your cargo phase, your tier 4 cargo SSTO. Now, like I said before, I didn't have a whole lot of time to make this thing have a perfect landing, but if you had the time, I'm sure you could make this thing land really good. I know it's capable of a very successful landing, as long as you can find a flat spot. Good luck on finding a flat spot. Now, a tier 5 SSTO you would think would be more easier now because we have bigger engines, the Weasley engine. So you would assume that the higher the technology, the more easier the SSTO. Interestingly enough, every tier brings its own challenges, regardless of the technology level. In the case of no longer needing a Juno engine, but rather having a Weasley engine, which is supposedly more powerful, numbers-wise, you could actually have a bunch of little Juno engines, get the same amount of thrust, and have a little less weight. But since it's a tier 5, that means we're going to do our best trying to use the Weasley engine and skip the Juno engines. So I guess you could say Weasley engine just helps on part count, maybe, if that's a thing to worry about, possibly. So in tier 5, I wanted to try to incorporate the Terrier engines. So the Terrier engine was going to be activated in the upper atmosphere. The swivel engines was going to get it up through to the upper atmosphere, and then the Weasley engines were going to get it from the ground all the way past the thicker part of the atmosphere. 3 steps, 3 engines. Woof. You know how I feel about multiple engines just to get into frickin' orbit. I try to avoid that. Simpler is always better, but I gave it a good run. Now for the tier 5, I wanted to use more of the crew modules because I figured, hey, it's a tier 5, it should be able to do more. So I put extra crew modules on there, put in a service bay with all the little gizmos in there, batteries, reaction wheels, re-entry probe core. But I also wanted to do docking. Since tier 5, we now have RCS. Also in tier 5, you're given the little robotic parts like pistons and such. So I want to make a little docking port that was inside of a service module. It'd pop out, connect to whatever station, and come back. Kind of like the precursor before the actual docking module or inline docking module would be given to you or unlocked. Now I tried the Weasley engine, I tried 2 Weasley engines, I tried 3 Weasley engines, tried to get more power, more speed to get through the thicker atmosphere. I tried 2 swivels and 1 Terrier, I tried 2 Terriers and 1 swivel, but I just wasn't getting the numbers. Having just 1 swivel meant that my TWR was low, and therefore I wasn't going to be able to get through the atmosphere quick enough for the Terriers to activate and be able to be 100, full thrust. Since they have a thrust cap, the deeper in the atmosphere they are. So I ended up just turning them all on, Terriers and swivel, try to get that thrust to weight ratio a little higher. I would fly at 45 degrees in order to use the lift from the wings, but at the same time get out of the atmosphere as quickly as possible. Since you're talking about rockets now, you switched over from air breathing to rockets, so now it's just get the hell out of there as fast as possible, while still trying to convert your fuel from not only altitude but also speed. That wasn't working. I thought about putting 2 swivels and 2 Terriers along with 2 Weasleys, but the SSTO would have just started getting out of control bigger at that point. Basically, it started becoming too much. I'm pretty sure the Weasleys were half to blame because of the fact that they're so heavy. I could have used a cluster of Juno engines and probably got a better deal. Because ultimately having a bunch of swivel engines and a bunch of Terrier rocket engines, while it sounds like a good idea, and your TWR looks great in the spaceplane hangar, and everything that you've read and seen on YouTube says that it's a good idea, in practice though, it could definitely be a different story. I did find out though that I could run 2 Weasleys off of one of those air intake doohickeys with the fuel in it. Can't think of the name off the top of my head just right now. But you can run 2 Weasleys off of that. You have to start off slow, get some speed going, and then go full power. But you can run 2 Weasleys off of it, which decreases the weight dramatically, which is really nice. Now, one thing I know is that, yes, ISP is very important. The weight of the rocket is extremely important. But the TWR can also be extremely important. So if your ISP and the weight of your rockets are small, but your TWR is crap, then you'll actually be spending more fuel trying to get up there. Knowing this, in Tier 5 I had unlocked the skipper engine. It's not all that great when it comes to ISP. It's not all that great when it comes to weight. But its TWR is off the frickin' chain. Which means even though it burns up a lot of fuel, and it's heavy, it can get me into space that quick. Which can actually save fuel by comparison. So that's what I ended up doing. 2 Weasleys and 1 skipper. Full bloody power. America! And it worked, and I was able to keep the craft small, which was nice. Landing it, however, actually took me by surprise because it slowed down so successfully that it barely experienced re-entry whatsoever, which was like, what? Huh? So I thought that was pretty cool. Cargo variants would, of course, again, be something that would be riding on the back of it, because we don't have any real way of building a cargo bay, but it's doable. Plus, with RCS and stuff now, you could actually bring Kerbals and supplies up there and dock with it, because we have docking ports now, so that'd be pretty cool. Anyway, moving on. Now let's talk about the Tier 6 SSTO. This time we've unlocked some goodies, including the Panther engine, which in comparison to the Juno and the Weasley is an absolute beauty. Now again, being at Tier 6, I really want to use the Terrier engine, but surprisingly enough, even though the Panther engine is a masterful little engine for its level of technology, it still doesn't quite get you high enough or fast enough to swap over directly to a Terrier engine. Even with 2 Terrier engines, I was getting really bad TWR. And so even though the ISP for a Terrier engine is great, it wasn't enough oomph, and I'd end up burning more fuel anyway just trying to get out of the atmosphere. In some cases I wouldn't even make it. So to keep from having a SSTO with 6 different engines on it, I just went ahead and used the new engine that we had unlocked, or that comes with Tier 6, the RK7. I think it's based off of a Russian design. But anyway, more powerful than the swivel, better ISP, a better engine overall. I could have easily just used the skipper, but I wanted to try to maybe save a little bit more Delta V. And it works. It worked great. Basically, I just try to go sea level, gain as much speed as possible before kicking it into afterburner. You don't really stay at sea level for too long, because you actually get up to speed the higher and faster you go. If you stay at sea level for too long, you end up wasting more fuel. I mean, you could, I guess, but you'd have to slap a bunch of liquid fuel on that sucker, which of course increases the weight. But as soon as the Panthers just about give out, you switch over to the rocket, the RK7, and you're in orbit. So let me know if you want me to make a video about Tier 7 and all the way up. If I get a lot of support for that on the comment section below, then I'll look at making a video like that. This has been a Kerbal Space Program video on SSTOs, tier levels 1 through 6. If anything, I hope you guys learned something. As always, I encourage that if you know something or know a trick, to put it in the comment section below for other people. That way they can learn more. I think SSTOs are a big thing right now because, well, not only because of SpaceX, but it's the idea of a ship leaving from an airport or a spaceport on the ground, going into space, doing what it has to do, then coming back and refueling, doing quick maintenance, and then going back up there. It's very sci-fi. We've been seeing it ever since we were kids. One ship, and that's all you need. Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, The Expanse, Babylon 5. They take one ship, they land on the planet, do what they gotta do, go back and come back up and dock with the mothership. Or in some cases, they don't even need that. Look at Star Wars. I think Star Wars is like the biggest SSTO thing out there. Practically all the ships are SSTOs. Except for the Death Star. I don't think you'd want that to land on the ground. But anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the channel. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like. It helps with the algorithm. Algorithm? What? And if you really liked what you saw, consider subscribing. I upload often, and every now and then I'll even upload a different game. We also have a membership thing that's recent. You can click to join if you really want to join. It's 99 cents a month. Like I said before, I would have picked free, but they don't have that option. So 99 cents is the lowest that they have. And with it, you can get a bunch of emojis and badges and stuff. Cool stuff. One of these days I'm going to make a... Maybe I'll stream it. We'll go back and we'll change some of the emojis. Not change, but, you know, make them a little nicer looking. Clean them up a little bit. But anyway... This has been a Kerbal Space Program video. Hope you enjoyed. Love you all. Take care. Love you all. Take care. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye-bye.